CMI is your full-service human resources provider in Central Kentucky. For 15 years, CMI Human Resources has taken great pride in helping organizations and people work. Whether it's employee handbooks or help in filling a position, no job is too large or too small for CMI. Contact the professionals today at CMI Human Resources, 859-296-2800, or online at cmiconsulting.com.
Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is Greg Horn. I want to thank you for tuning in today. We are continuing our conversation. This is our third program with the author of a really good book that I read over this past Christmas called Fifth and Hope. It is a novel written, the pen name is Nathaniel Sewell, but the actual author has Lexington roots, Robert Hall, and we grew up together, and then, like a lot of people, have lost contact over the years, but when he saw I'd started the program Hope is Here back to the 1st of December, he said, hey, I'm going to send you a book that I think you might be able to relate to, and he sent me a copy of this book, and even though it is fiction, and I'm normally a nonfiction guy, I couldn't put the book down and read it in 3 days, so would encourage you to pick up a copy of it. And we have been talking about this book and what Robert was trying to convey through this book, and it has some factual things, even though it's a fiction book about his grandparents who were in eastern Kentucky. His grandfather was a pastor, and about this life, or about this, journey they took all the way from California at the Bible Institute of Los Angeles all the way back to eastern Kentucky. And you really would be able to relate the book, whether you're male or female. So I encourage you to pick up a copy, and we'll talk to Robert about how you can do that in a few minutes. But Robert, we've just been talking about parts of this book, and as I tell people, hey, if you missed the first two, make sure you don't miss those. We have those available on our podcast now. Just go to our website, hopeishere.today. But Robert, as we continue to talk about your outstanding book that really blessed me, is starting to get near the end of it here. On page 202, there was a part where you wrote, there are words that directly connect to feelings and emotions, but then there are feelings that cannot be expressed by words. They're only felt or only shown by a single tear that's quietly wiped away. And for us men, like Bobby in the book, it's hard to shed tears, and, we want to be tough and all, but even just that one tear has big significance, and yet God gave us tears to release the pain in our life, and that's what I liked about the characters in your book. They were all dealing with some type of pain, and, as I heard Wayne Smith say one time, God had one son without sin, no son without sorrow. And unfortunately, the fact of the matter is we are going to hurt, and even Bobby here shows a little emotion at one point in the book.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to achieve, is to thaw him out. Over time, you see he starts to kind of unravel a little bit, and I do that from the standpoint of, I think most men, I think most women. I don't think it's really anything other than the fact that people get into situations and they don't want to let people know about their pain. They don't want to talk about these things. My books, by and large, are always about those issues. What's driving those characters? What hurts? And if they can reveal it, and he starts to reveal the fact how what's missing in his life. I allude to it in the very beginning of the book. I'm not going to tell obviously the reason at the end, but he's not a happy character. He's not a happy guy. Many of the characters are not overtly happy. I wanted to write characters that I thought were real, that came off as real to people. Like, I know that person, or that's me. That's how I feel. And things happen to you in life, like it happened to you, Greg, it's happened to me, that then we have to feel out how to work through it. And sometimes it's not a bad idea to cry, or somebody give you a hug, somebody hold your hand. Just little things can go a long way to help you reveal. And so just a little tear sometimes starts to emote and bring out things that are there that really should be revealed. They should be out there on the table, because once they're out there, then sometimes people can let that go. They can go, all right, that's not going to kill me. I'm all right. I can get back up and I can keep moving forward.
Absolutely. Well, you talked about your grandfather and the part in this book, and like I said, a lot of it is based actually on your actual grandfather, but there's one part in the book that I really liked where you talked about him there, and it says, I had never understood the rituals, but driving along the open road, I missed them. The rituals were the strong tree roots hidden deep within my DNA. They had been my missing center, But then Amy's discoveries caused me to realize my grandfather had been the glue that kept the community together. It was what his job had meant to the community. But my grandmother was the glue that kept my grandfather together. And gosh, I mean, there's 100 takeaways, but a couple I have that I want to hear where you were trying to go with it as a writer, because it may have been totally different. But one is just, how prominent in small communities that a pastor can have. And even I think about a Wayne Smith or a Ted Zisk at Emmanuel where he grew up, what pillars, they were for us.
Absolutely.
And then the second thing is just what a great team it takes. Sometimes, and the pastor's there on the front line. But for Wayne Smith, I worked at Lighthouse Ministries a couple years, a nonprofit that had an addiction recovery program for men, and then fed the less fortunate lunch, and now actually does dinner because we raised funds and opened a new building called the Wayne and Marge Smith Dining Hall, and we were just going to name it for Wayne Smith. And then Tay Henderson, the founder, her and her husband Dan, who has passed away, said, well, we need to name it after his wife too. He couldn't have done all that stuff without Marge. And so I thought about that in your book, as you mentioned about the grandmother was the glue that kept the grandfather together. And Wayne told us, he just started crying. He said, I've been blessed to receive a lot of awards, and there's Bible colleges all through the country have libraries named after him, different things. But he said, nobody's ever named anything after Marge. And he said, that just touches my heart. And so I thought about that part when you wrote in the book there, that what a great team that your grandfather and grandmother were.
Yeah, they really were, and that was pretty spot on. I mean, my grandfather was very good at standing up in front of people. He was never a big, loud talker. He was just very direct and to the point, and a very kind human being. But I allude to it in the book, a spot there where something that happened to him made him somewhat fragile. That she then, my grandmother, in the books it's fictionalized, but in reality she was tough. I mean, and she knew how to she didn't say a lot. She wasn't a big talker. She didn't really want to draw attention to herself, but she was just sort of that backstop that I think people need. You need to have that person in your life, or persons that can kind of go, it's going to be all right. You can do this. Sometimes you just need that basic encouragement to get through things and know that you're cared about, you're loved. And that's kind of why that character, why she's so valuable to him, and was to him in reality, is she was always there. She was that foundation that you need to have to be able to have somebody to bounce things off of, to be able to kind of know, yeah, you're doing all right, keep going, you'll be fine. That it sounds so simple, and yet it is so complex and so basic, and yet it works almost every time.
Oh, no doubt about it, man. I totally agree with you. And like I said, I just thought that part was huge, and why I say the book is so good in so many ways, and why I think both men and women will really, really like the book. Final thing I've got from the book that I want to ask you about, and then want you to be able to share anything that maybe that you want readers to be able to, your intent. But let me share one other thing that really spoke to me. Page 232 in the book says, Amy says, the girls are growing. I worry. I pray for a good offertory, but I hate to ask. Hazel's busy. I worry about her. We are stretched, but our church grows. We are blessed. And so I believe Amy's reading from your grandfather's journal, if I'm not mistaken. And
yes, she is.
Okay. And I guess the reason that just spoke to me so much, Robert, and want you to share, what you were trying to convey to people, but, being a former pastor and executive pastor at a large church and then pastoring a church of under 50, I could so relate to, that things are stretched. We had big bills with the big church, and any bill was big in the small church. And it said, I could relate to what he said. We are stretched, but our church grows. We are blessed. And the final thing is just my father didn't become a follower of Jesus till he was 50, but God literally transformed him, and he just started consuming the Bible, and he passed away be 2 years ago this March. And he was
a nice man.
Well, thank you. Yeah, he was a good one. And one of the things, though, the last couple of years of his life, he just blessed was his word. Just, you call him, how you doing, Dad? He's like, I'm blessed, son. And, and he wasn't always. He had aches and pains, and he was a small grocery store owner, and they had challenges like any entrepreneur. And He had a small business in Sidersville, Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky, and so, but he just chose to say, hey, because I'm above ground and I've got health, I've got a roof over my head, I've got food, I'm blessed. And so I could so relate to that when she was reading your grandfather's journal and says, we are blessed. So anyway, I just wanted you to share maybe what your intent was behind that part there. And I love the part how you did that throughout the whole book about the reading of your grandfather's journals, man. I felt like I was sitting right there reading it myself.
Yeah, and those diaries don't exist, by the way.
Really?
I made all that up. Oh,
wow.
Yeah, none of it. I tried to write it in the form of how he might have talked, how he would have written. I found a diary my grandfather had. Unfortunately, it had almost nothing in it, and so I created those diaries purely out of my own little brain here. And those moments, having been around my grandfather so much, and him being a minister and being around other ministers, like we were growing up, Greg. I knew that church budget, how it worked. I was young enough, but I could pay attention. I went, that money doesn't come from the trees. It comes from other the parishioners, people that are there. And so, tithing and giving, is so important. And I remember how my grandfather would go, well, we'll figure it out. And that lesson I learned at a young age helped me when I was in my own business career and my own entrepreneurship. When I built businesses, and sometimes I would have, the money would be coming in and be great, and then other times things would not be so great. And you learned that, it's life. It's just part of it. I don't have a dread disease. I have my health. I have food. I have shelter. And then you realize, all right, we'll be okay. And so sometimes you have to make changes that are painful. But the great lesson is, a church operates like any business in many respects, except for the fact that it's based on charity. It's based on grace. It's based on rendering a product that is invisible. It's a product about love and about faith and about caring and about community. And the ability to move people to invest in that church is tough sometimes, because sometimes people aren't feeling quite as generous as other times. So it's and you marry that against the Bobby character in the book, who's quite frankly greedy and tough and all about himself in many respects, and it creates that balance there that I was trying to create, to give people. And really give the Bobby character kind of a mirror in front of him, kind of going, hey, you don't have to act that way. You can act this way and just be just as happy. And so that was kind of part of my thinking in those things.
Robert, I can't believe it. Even though this is our third program, we've got about 45 seconds left. If people want to pick up a copy of Fifth and Hope, it's a novel under the pen name of Nathaniel Sewell, Sewell, Nathaniel Sewell. If they want to pick up a copy of this outstanding book, Fifth and Hope, what's the best way to do that?
I think Amazon is probably the easiest. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. You could probably get your bookstore there to order it if need be. You can also order it off of my website, nathanielsewell.com, and I do have it where you have some links there to buy it. You can also find my other books there that I'm more than happy. If you buy it off my website, I'll sign it and send it to you. And it's fairly easy these days to get a hold of books along those lines. But it's really I would like to point out another thing, Greg. None of my books have hardly anything that's dirty or anything that's difficult to read. They're fairly clean books by and large, and I did that on purpose so that even a high schooler could read it and not be offended.
Well, I appreciate that fact, and this was a great read, and I'm sure the other two are. So encourage you to check out his website, nathanielsewell.com. Robert, thank you so much for being with us. Great to catch up with you, man, and I hope to see you in Lexington sometime soon.
Thanks. I appreciate it, Greg.
All right. That is Robert Hall. His pen name is Nathaniel Sewell. We've been talking about his great book, Fifth and Hope, the last 2 days. Today, making it third day. Check those out at our website, hopeishere.today.